Hello and welcome to Fast and Factual on Firstpost, where we get you the 50 top stories from around the world. I'm Alison Lagrange, live from Durban, South Africa. Let's begin. In our top stories, Hezbollah launched a barrage of more than 200 rockets at northern Israel. Several more missiles and drones were also fired. The barrage marked the largest attack by Hezbollah since it began pounding Israel in October last year. This comes after 3 Hezbollah members were killed in an earlier Israeli strike on Lebanon. It included the death of top Hezbollah commander Abu Talib. Now, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says Hamas has proposed numerous changes to the Gaza ceasefire deal. However, senior Hamas official Osama Hamdan has denied putting any new ideas forward. Instead, he blamed Israel for rejecting the proposal and accused the U.S. of supporting its ally. The leaders of the Group of 7 nations are converging in Italy for their annual summit. The G7 summit begins today and will last until the 15th of June. The ongoing Ukraine, Russia and Israel-Hamas wars are expected to dominate the discussions. Migration, artificial intelligence and climate change are also expected to be top on the agenda. Besides the G7 nations, leaders from Ukraine, Brazil, UAE and other nations will also join in. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also heading to Italy to attend the summit. According to U.S. officials, he will likely meet Joe Biden on the sidelines of the summit. The Indian Prime Minister is also scheduled to speak with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. However, the details of Prime Minister Modi's meeting with Meloni are still being worked out. Joe Biden will be signing a new security agreement with Ukraine on the sidelines of the G7 summit. The agreement does not make a specific monetary pledge. However, it will reportedly include the U.S.'s assistance for Ukraine for the production of weapons and military equipment. An agreement has also been reached on how to provide Ukraine with up to $50 billion backed by frozen Russian assets. Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak will announce up to $310 million in assistance to Ukraine at the summit. It is expected to be used for emergency humanitarian aid and to rebuild critical energy infrastructure targeted by Russia. This is part of a $3.1 billion military aid package to Ukraine, agreed by Sunak in January of this year. Chinese Premier Li Qiang arrived in New Zealand this morning. He was officially welcomed in a traditional ceremony in the capital city of Wellington. Li's visit marks the highest-level Chinese visit to the country in 7 years. During the rare visit, Li pledged greater trade cooperation with New Zealand. At least 49 people have been killed in Kuwait after a fire broke out in a building housing workers. At least 40 of those dead were Indian nationals. Meanwhile, 50 more were injured, out of which 30 were Indians. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has expressed grief over the loss of lives and announced compensation for the deceased. Meanwhile, India's External Affairs Minister also spoke to his Kuwaiti counterpart to take stock of the situation. Argentina's Senate passed a sprawling bill that is key to President Javier Milei's economic reform plans. The approval for the bill came after 11 hours of heated debate among lawmakers. This as protesters clashed with police outside the Congress in Buenos Aires. Demonstrators hurled stones and Molotov cocktails and set cars on fire. Meanwhile, riot police fired water cannons and tear gas to disperse them. Protests also erupted in Armenia over a peace treaty with Azerbaijan. The Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan said that the peace treaty was close to completion. Following this, clashes broke out between police and demonstrators. Police fired stun grenades at protesters massed around Parliament. Demonstrations have escalated in recent weeks, with Armenians denouncing the Prime Minister's policies and demanding his resignation. In South Africa, the African National Congress seems to have reached an agreement to form the government. The Inkatha Freedom Party will join a unity government with the ANC and the Democratic Alliance. Last week, the ANC said it would form a national unity government, but was struggling to find coalition partners. This as the country's parliament is set to convene on Friday. And Rwanda has accused the United Nations of lying. This after the UN alleged in court that asylum seekers sent from the UK could face persecution in the country. Britain's controversial plan to deport migrants to Rwanda has been mired in legal challenges. But Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's government has insisted he will proceed with the plan if he wins the 4th of July general election. Meanwhile, a UN report shows that nearly 120 million people were displaced across the world in 2023. Now that's due to continuing conflicts in regions like Gaza, Sudan and Myanmar. The number is up from 110 million a year ago. In climate news, Indian meteorologists have predicted that the heatwave conditions will intensify in northwest and eastern India. According to their data, rainfall is not expected in North India over the next 6 to 8 days. Monsoon may pick up only by the end of June. Now, this summer season's first heat wave has hit the country of Greece. Due to the sweltering temperatures, authorities have closed schools and historical sites. In some parts, temperatures were predicted to cross 43 degrees Celsius. And a massive wildfire broke out in the U.S. state of Nevada's Spark City. Dozens of firefighters rushed to the site to contain the raging fire. According to local authorities, the wildfire is now 50% under control. Meanwhile, record rain and flash flooding has inundated southeastern Florida. The severe weather conditions led to the delay of hundreds of flights. Some roads and vehicles were completely submerged underwater. Weather experts have predicted more rain to hit the region. 8 climate protesters interrupted the annual congressional baseball game in Washington. They ran into the field wearing T-shirts that stated "End Fossil Fuels," while some of them were holding Palestinian flags. Police later arrested the protesters and escorted them off the field. According to a Ukrainian study, the war with Russia has resulted in huge carbon dioxide emissions. Experts say 175 million tons of carbon dioxide released into the air. The major contributors are attacks and repair work. And Africa's Great Green Wall will not be able to meet its 2030 goal. The project is meant to restore the degraded landscapes and boost economies. It was launched in 2007 to reinstate 100 million hectares of land. The project is only 30% complete. On to business and tech news now. The U.S. Federal Reserve has decided to keep the interest rates unchanged. This even as Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said the consumer prices have eased in recent months. Powell noted that they still need more time to achieve inflation targets. The Federal Reserve has maintained its interest rate at a 23-year high since July last year. The U.S. Central Bank has suggested it may lower the rate in late December. Meanwhile, consumer prices remained largely unchanged in the U.S. last month. Consumer prices rose by 3.3% in May, compared to 3.4% the previous month. Now, data showed that inflation eased largely due to a sharp drop in fuel prices. Food saw some marginal increase. Meanwhile, healthcare and education services became more expensive. Meanwhile, India also reported its monthly inflation data yesterday. Inflation eased to a 12-year low in May this year. Data showed that consumer prices rose by 4.75% last month. Inflation eased mainly due to low fuel prices. Prices of food and beverages remain unchanged. The United States announced a series of new economic sanctions related to Russia yesterday, and these include Chinese firms selling semiconductor chips to Russia. The U.S. said these sanctions aim to restrict Russia's ability to procure advanced U.S. technologies from other countries. Washington has imposed numerous sanctions on Russia since the start of the Ukraine war. And the European Union plans to impose new import tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles starting next month. The EU says it will impose extra duties of up to 38% on Chinese EVs. These cars already attract a 10% import tax. EU says that the tariffs are in response to a surge of EV imports from China. The EU claims it is hurting their EV industry. Now, China has said that it will take measures to safeguard rights of its automakers. And India's snack maker Haldiram's is reportedly planning an initial public offering, or IPO. This comes as acquisition talks with foreign investors have stalled. Earlier, it was reported that the owners of Haldiram's were in talks with investors to sell the firm. They had received a bid from a consortium led by American investment firm Blackstone. And American logistics firm FedEx is planning to cut up to 2,000 jobs in Europe. These layoffs will spread over 18 months and impact back-office workers. This comes as FedEx has been struggling with slowing demand. Layoffs aim to save up to $175 million a year for the firm. Tesla shareholders voted on CEO Elon Musk's $56 billion pay package today. Earlier this year, the pay was nullified by a U.S. court. Musk said that the resolution that aims to reinstate the pay package was passed by a wide margin. It was seen as a vote on Elon Musk's leadership at Tesla. Meanwhile, former SpaceX workers have filed a lawsuit against Elon Musk. The workers claim they were fired after publishing an open letter against Musk. Workers accuse Musk of fostering a sexist work culture at the spacecraft firm. The lawsuit includes charges of sexual harassment and discrimination against Musk and SpaceX. Apple briefly overtook Microsoft to become the world's most valuable company yesterday. Apple's share price surged 4%, taking its market value to over $3.29 trillion. However, the share prices later retreated. Apple's market valuation settled at $3.27 trillion by the end of the trading session. Meanwhile, Microsoft's market value stood at $3.28 trillion. And moving to sports news, we begin with the ongoing T20 Cricket World Cup. India qualified for the Super 8 stage of the tournament after they defeated the United States by 7 wickets yesterday. America batted first and scored just 110 runs in their innings. India chased down the target in the 18th over as Surya Kumar Yadav made an unbeaten half-century to seal the win for the men in blue. India remain unbeaten in the T20 World Cup with 3 wins and face Canada in their final pool match on Saturday. Meanwhile, the West Indies fought back to beat New Zealand by 13 runs in last night's thriller. The co-hosts batted first and scored 149 runs in 20 overs. Now, batsman Rutherford scored a scintillating, unbeaten 68 from 39 balls. During the chase, New Zealand were restricted to 130 runs in their innings. With this, the West Indies have reserved a spot in the final 8. Moving to football, Lionel Messi intends to finish his pro career with Inter Miami. Messi said that although he was not ready to leave the game yet, Inter Miami would be his last club. The Argentine footballer joined the Major League Soccer last summer after leaving Paris Saint-Germain. He is on contract with the American club until 2025. Bayern Munich are reportedly targeting Liverpool defender Joe Gomez. The club's manager, Vincent Kompany, aims to bring seasoned talent ahead of his first season in Germany. However, Liverpool are likely to issue a firm hands-off warning to Bayern. That's because they do not want to lose one of their most valued players. Meanwhile, Chelsea are considering a shift in their position over selling Conor Gallagher. They could make a concerted effort to agree a new deal with the midfielder. Gallagher will be out of a contract at the end of next season and is wanted by both Aston Villa and Tottenham Hotspurs. Italian club AC Milan have reportedly held talks with Aston Villa over a move for Matty Cash. Aston Villa has likely valued the right back at over $25 million. Cash has established himself as one of the Premier League's most consistent defenders since joining Villa in 2020. And Italian club Juventus have appointed former Bologna boss Thiago Motta as their new manager. The 41-year-old has signed a 3-year deal until June of 2027. Now he replaces Allegri, who was sacked 2 days after he led Juventus to the Italian Cup. In tennis news, Spanish stars Rafael Nadal and Carlos Alcaraz will partner for the men's doubles at the upcoming 2024 Paris Olympics. The duo will start their campaign on the 27th of July at Roland Garros, home of the French Open. Meanwhile, the Paris Games are likely to be Nadal's last Olympics. The Spanish tennis star is reportedly considering retirement after this season. In basketball, the American basketball legend Jerry West has died at 86. West played in 9 NBA finals with the Los Angeles Lakers and won the title in 1972. He was the third player in NBA history to reach 25,000 points. West was also behind the inspiration of the National Basketball Association's logo. And the International Olympic Committee has recommended venues for the Winter Olympics in the years 2030 and 2034. The French Alps has been put forward for the 2030 Winter Olympics. Meanwhile, Salt Lake City in the U.S. has been recommended to host the 2034 edition of the Winter Games. The venues will formally get approved at the IOC's meeting after the Paris Olympics. In entertainment news, American footballer Travis Kelce revealed that he loves spending time in the kitchen with Taylor Swift. In a press conference, he revealed that Swift makes great Pop-Tarts and cinnamon rolls. Kelce and Swift's love story began in September last year. TV presenter Gayle King revealed that Oprah Winfrey is in the hospital. She has been hospitalized due to a stomach flu. Oprah had to be put on a drip for dehydration. This comes after Oprah's absence on the CBS morning show. And singer Kevin Jonas recently underwent treatment for skin cancer. Jonas revealed on social media that he had a mole which turned out to be skin cancer. He urged his followers to get their moles checked as a precautionary measure. Indian singer Diljit Dosanjh will appear as a guest on Jimmy Fallon's The Tonight Show. He took to social media to express his excitement. According to reports, he might perform a traditional Bhangra dance on the show. And the cast members for director Ryo Seung-won's film Hamnet will have been finalized. Actors like Zo In-sung, Park Jeong-min and Park Hae-joon have been cast. The filming will begin in October this year. Hamnet is an espionage action film about the clash between South Korea and North Korea. Actor Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson suffered an elbow injury on the sets of The Smashing Machine. Johnson revealed that he sustained significant impact to his right elbow. He will have to undergo scans to assess the extent of the injury. And Jason George has decided to reprise his role in the popular medical drama series Grey's Anatomy. He will join the cast as Ben Warren for the show's 21st season. George had left the show after season 14 to help to launch the spin-off series Station 19. And writer George R.R. Martin has confirmed that 10,000 Ships is back in the works. It is a spin-off of the hit HBO series Game of Thrones. Martin is working on a new pilot for 10,000 Ships. This comes after reports that the series had been scrapped. Director Jan de Mange has exited Marvel's Blade. The cause of his exit is not yet known. Mahershala Ali remains aboard to play the lead role in the film. 1998's Blade was Marvel's first film. And Netflix will air New York City's hot dog eating contest live. The competition is held annually on the 4th of July. About 20 contestants compete in the competition to become the ultimate eater. In 2023, the winner, Joey Chestnut, ate 62 hot dogs. And that's it on today's episode of Fast and Factual. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Firstpost.